Hello, National University Academy students. This is Mr. Goyette going over Economics Unit 5 with you. We're going to go over the vocabulary terms you'll need to review to do well on your discussion boards, on your quizzes, and in our class live discussions during the week, class live chats on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. So let's take a look at those terms really quickly. What we're reviewing right now are the following. Depression, trough that we still need to go over, recession, contraction, peak, frictional unemployment, inflation, cost push inflation, wage price inflation, cyclical unemployment. So let's get right into it with discussion of the contraction. Now with contraction, you can think of it as a type of, the words contraction and recession can kind of go hand in hand. And to put this in context of how it's going to be discussed in class, let's look at the, let's see here, a phase of a business cycle that's characterized as a slowdown in business is a contraction. And in your textbook on page 236, you see that it says, periods of expansion eventually hit a peak or a high point at which the economy is at its strongest and most prosperous. At a peak, high consumer demand encourages producers to see plant capacity more fully and to use plant capacity more fully and to hire more workers. When real GDP stops increasing, the business cycle enters a period of business slowdown known as contraction or recession. Technically, a recession is a decline in real GDP for 2 or more consecutive quarters. Get that? Recession is a decline in real GDP for 2 or more consecutive quarters. That is for 6 months or more. A depression is prolonged or severe recession, such as the Great Depression of the 1930s, the most severe contraction in our U.S. economic history. The final stage of the business cycle is the trough, which occurs when demand, production, and employment reach their lowest levels. Following the trough, the economy enters a period of recovery, and the expansion phase begins once again. So looking at contraction and expansion, we've kind of covered those. Now, the expansion seen after the Great Depression, we saw that the war increased production, and that's going to put a lot of people to work. The New Deal spending, of course, can do a lot of that because it's going to start a lot of federal projects. But World War II really kicked up and created expansion. Of course, the part of your quiz is going to ask about that. It's going to put so many people to work. It is not always the case that you see that direct relationship where a war will automatically increase GDP because you have so many other expenditures. And in the case with the Cold War, there was so much spending going on during the Reagan administration that it did hurt the deficit quite a bit. Which of the following factors have an impact on productivity growth? You're going to see several factors: the available technology, quality of capital goods available per worker, and the education and skill level of the workforce are all very important things to affect productivity and growth. A person that is classified as employed when the survey is done for the current population survey, a person can be out sick and still be considered employed, of course. A person can work for 1 hour or more a day and still be considered, they can be poor because they're only working an hour a day and could not be able to contribute to their family's income very much, but they're still considered employed because they worked for an hour that day. You can work without pay for a family business for 15 hours and can be considered an employee. So employment figures can be a little shady there. Full employment means employment for 95% of the population of the workforce, not 100%. A person who leaves a job to look for another job is experiencing frictional unemployment because they're moving from one environment to the next. That's measured differently than other, like structural unemployment. Structural unemployment is when the natural resources of an area, let's say an oil region, Or they use the example of Appalachia, where the resources are used up in that region, and because of that, the plant that was there is no longer going to be mining that material or harvesting that material, so you're going to have a lot of people unemployed in that region. Demand pull inflation can result from an increase in the money supply, an increase in the availability of credit, and the aggregate demand for and the aggregate demand increasing faster than aggregate supply. So in aggregate demand, more people want it, so it's going to be worth more, and not enough is being produced, so there's scarcity, so the cost is going to go up. So for example, if I have a Mickey Mantle baseball card, or a very rare, extremely rare relic, obviously those things are your extreme examples of the scarcity coming into effect. But in this case, it's when a lot of things are being produced, but still not enough to meet the demand. That's going to increase demand pull inflation. Inflation particularly affects people who live on fixed incomes, because if I'm on Social Security, for example, and I only have this much money each month, if I suddenly have to pay for more things, pay more for gas, or pay more for bread and milk, necessities that I need for my life, then I'm going to still have to shell out that money, and I don't have as much coming in. So because I have a fixed income, if inflation occurs, it's going to be harder for me to balance my books. Measuring the number of people living in poverty in the United States allows economists to provide some indication of economic well-being of the country. So you'll see those numbers thrown around. They can be politicized, so you always want to double check when you hear quoted figures about poverty here in this country, in that country. Please do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Find information that's valid, relevant, and you can be backed up scientifically. The growth of the global economy and the rapid changes in technological growth have brought a widening gap or disparity between the rich and the poor. And increased leisure time is not something that GDP measures, so it is one of the goods that is not reported in GDP, and of course it's not really a good either. Unemployment hurts the economy on the whole, because the nation loses goods and services that unemployed would produce, and businesses lose sales. Now think about, if I'm thinking I might be unemployed, I might not go out and go to a movie, or I might not buy a CD or go to a concert because I'm holding on to my money and keeping that for a rainy day, or a situation where I might have to pay my bills because I might be unemployed. That's going to make me very conservative about my money. If a lot of people are doing that in the economy, not a lot of people are buying things. That means the company now that's making TVs, for example, or the company, the AMC movie theater that's paying that hostess to, or they paying the person to take tickets or make the popcorn, they might have to let that person go because not as many people are coming in. Ironically, though, movies tend to be one area where people keep coming, even during recession periods, because people like to escape the negativity of, I gotta go. I gotta keep this under 9 minutes. Okay, it's my alarm telling me I gotta stop here. During the Great Depression in the 1930s, the U.S. faced severe cyclical unemployment. That's when the situation I just described, where when more people are unemployed, more people can't go out, and they're not making and producing more things aren't being bought, more people are being laid off. So it's a cyclical thing. Please explain how price level is different from inflation, and that's on page, I believe, 255. Read page 255 carefully, and I'll get back to you soon on economics. Thank you, and please call or email or Skype me. I want to help you do well in the class. Talk to you later. Bye now.